Chapter 31. Married men are more attractive. Fetish. It is a form of sexual desire in which gratification is strongly linked to a particular object or activity or a part of the body other than the sexual organs. Why did he explain this now? It was because he understood Rias's fetish now. As Rias forcefully kissed his lips, he could see her intoxicated and happy when she saw his gaff. When he saw all of this, he was sure what her fetish was. Best of the best. Yes, Rias had always wanted the best. Whether it was her family, older brother, appearance, talents, or everything around her, Rias got the best thing that most people could only dream about in their sleep easily. It was also the reason why she fell for Issei, since he was the best among the best. He was the strongest. Even if Issei was a pervert, it didn't change the fact that he was strong. So those strengths were enough to make Rias fall for Issei, since he satisfied her fetish and vanity. However, it was different now since Issei had lost to him so many times. Moreover, he also decided to divorce her and marry her best friend. As someone whose nature was more prideful than anyone, how could Rias accept all of that? Being constantly tortured by failure after failure, Rias felt a sense of bliss when she saw the one that stood above everyone was in a gaff when she kissed him. While he was speechless, he enjoyed this kiss and was about to insert his tongue, but he quickly regained his clarity and pushed her away. "You bitch. What are you doing?" Riser was about to marry soon, and the place where they kissed was full of people. If someone saw he was kissed by Rias, then what would happen to him? He was afraid that Serafal might freeze him to death. Being pushed by him, Rias didn't get angry and even felt proud. "Riser, why were you getting shy like that? Didn't we kiss several times before?" That was the past. Riser really wanted to beat this woman up, but he endured it since he couldn't fight her older brother. He might be strong, but it didn't mean he was strong enough to fight Surzek. Nevertheless, he also felt weird since the system didn't give him a quest when he was kissed by Rias so suddenly. "Just enjoy, okay? It's not like you will lose something when she kisses you." "I've lost my innocence, and my mental health is damaged." The system was speechless since Riser was more shameless than it had thought. "Really? But didn't you enjoy it? You were about to put your tongue inside my mouth before." Yet, Rias wasn't deceived by his bluff since she knew this guy was still attracted to her. "Rias Gremory." His tone was solemn and cold. "I was about to marry Sona Citri, your best friend. I am about to become a married man. While we might have engaged before, we no longer have that relationship now. We can pursue someone that we love without being worried about anything now. Didn't you like that Security? Then, go ahead and marry him. Don't bother me any longer." Then, he looked at Aquino, who was looking in his direction. "Hey, Gremory's queen over there." "Ah, yes." Aquino was startled when Riser suddenly called her and quickly recovered from her deep thought. "Take care of your master. Don't let her mess up my wedding." "Do you think I can control her, Riser-sama?" Aquino showed a pitiful expression and asked. Riser's lips twitched, and he felt helpless. He then looked at Rias, who didn't seem to fear anything, as if she was ready to destroy everything while killing herself. "Rias." This might be the first time he called her given name after they parted, since he usually called her by her family name. So Rias, who heard her given name being called, felt a strange feeling in her heart. She didn't hate this feeling and quietly looked at him. "I apologized for shaming you in front of everyone. Due to my actions, I know that I have caused you many troubles, but this is something that you wish, right? You don't want to marry me, and I won't force you to marry me. Now, I am about to become a married man, and being with you might cause a misunderstanding. I hope you understand my position and respect yourselves. Don't give your kiss so easily like that, since I will look down on you." Rias flinched when she heard his last words. "I know that with your nature, it is impossible for you to forgive me, so I won't ask for forgiveness, but as your former fiancé, I hope you are well. Farewell." Leaving those words, Rias saw he left without any hesitation like before. She gritted her teeth and shouted, "Riser, you are going to regret it." Riser only waved his hand and continued to walk. Grinding her teeth, Rias shouted once again, "If you stop this marriage, then I will give you my everything." Riser didn't stop. "Razir." Rias became even more desperate, then asked, "Do you love Sona that much? Don't you like my breasts?" "My breasts are going to be yours." Riser almost staggered before he sighed helplessly. "If I say that I love her with just a limited amount of time, then I will be irresponsible, and my love is really cheap, but as she will be my wife, I will make her happy, and I am trying to love her, so don't bother me again." He took a deep breath and then quickly left, since he was afraid that if he continued to stay, then he might not be able to explain his situation in case someone watched them. Watching him, who left as if running away from her, Rias felt even more frustrated. Why? 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 Rias continued to ask this question as she had an urge to destroy everything. Rias. It wasn't until Aquino said something that Rias woke up. His wedding is about to start. We should be there soon since your family is waiting for you. I know. However, Rias still felt unsatisfied since everything didn't go according to her wish. The guy, who used to be her fiancé, pleased her and wanted to rub her breast crazily, was no longer obsessed with her. Yet, how could she accept that? There was no way that she would give up. Even if he had married, so what? She was sure that she could make him fall under her skirt and fall helplessly like before. What are you going to do? He is about to become a married man, you know. Aquino asked helplessly. Isn't it fine? A married man is more attractive. Rias answered brazenly. Well, that's true. Aquino nodded in agreement. Rias stared at Aquino in disbelief. Aquino chuckled. I was kidding. There was no way that I would have such a relationship with your former fiancé, right? You should, since I won't forgive you if you do so. Yes, yes. Aquino smiled and then helped Rias fix her makeup and dress. Let's fix up your dress and makeup first. Don't you want to appear as the most beautiful one? Okay. Rias nodded and agreed before she walked to the restroom. Nevertheless, she didn't realize that Aquino's expression was quite weird at this moment, as if she had imagined something. Aquino squeezed her legs as if she were holding something before she let out a hot breath. Aquino, I am coming. Chapter 32, The Promise Between the Two of Us. Why didn't you talk or give me an option before? Usually, this degenerate system would say something ridiculous and force him to do something strange, so it surprised him that the system was quiet. This is your wedding. Your happiest day. I am trying to respect you. Riser would be lying if he wasn't moved by the system's kindness. Yet, was this Stockholm Syndrome? Because he was forced to do many ridiculous things, then a simple kindness would make him feel grateful toward the system. If so, then the system was craftier than he had thought. At the same time, he wondered what was wrong with his luck for being latched on by this weird system. Still, if you bring her to the restroom on the edge of the hall where no one will come, she will give you her first time along with her queen, then you will get a reward. While he was speechless, he couldn't help but ask, Really? As a villain, how could you not have a fiancé? You should have a fiancé. Have a wife. Have a mistress. Have a lot of women. Make a harem. The villain is someone that can't be controlled. Live freely and more happily than others. No rules can bind you. The rules are made to be broken by you. Set an engagement with another pure-blood devil. Target, Rias Gremory, Sona Citri, Sikvera Agars, Latia Astaroth, Iriuka Glaciolabilis. If you fail, you will lose one nipple. As for the reward, depending on the number and person, it will be different, but you will like it. Was this his quest in the beginning? Do you remember this quest right? If you can take down all of them, then you will get more rewards. After all, as a villain, how can you be restrained? Even if you're married, you should be wild and unleash your inner desire. Riser was silent for a moment, then asked, But I am about to marry Sona, and this quest should be over, right? I won't receive a punishment, right? Yes, if you marry Sona, then this quest will be completed. You will receive rewards, and you won't get a punishment, but at the same time, you can continue this quest if you wish. If I wish? So you won't force me? I won't. Then, why did you force me in the beginning? Because you need to get used to this world. Even if you are just a side character, this world is dangerous. You will need to have psychological preparation before you jump into this world. In case I don't force you to kiss Rias in the beginning, what will you do? What would he do? Riser wasn't sure since he was so confused when he suddenly became Riser Phenex during his engagement. Right? You were just a normal human before. The world you were in before is different from this world. If you mess up, then your life will be like the original Riser, watching all the girls before you fall for the protagonist. This world is ridiculous since even if you are a pervert who is always thinking by using your lower body, the girls will crazily flock to you. So there is no need for you to hold back. Just go crazy. Fight poison with poison. Be unrestrained. No one can control you. While the system's words were understandable, at the same time, Riser would be lying if he didn't hold a grudge since, in the beginning, he was about to lose his holy sword. On the next one, he might lose his demonic power, nipples, then also his hair. Riser believed that this system tried to make him crazy. After all, like he had said before, who wished to become a villain? With his life as Riser Phenex, his life was comfortable. He didn't lack money, women, or even power. With all of that, why should he make trouble? However, even if you don't cause trouble, won't the other trouble you? Have you heard about the butterfly effect? Your appearance has caused many changes in the plot. The troubles that are encountered by Issei Hyudo might be encountered by you, and they will flock at you, destroying your peaceful lives. If you wish to maintain your life, then power is necessary. Power is necessary. Riser knew that this was correct, especially when he had faced many helpless situations. In the beginning, if he was strong enough, would Surzek and the Gremory family make a mess on his engagement day? Would Issei dare to fight him? As for Serafal, this one couldn't be helped since this one was like a comedic character. Moreover, getting Sona as his wife was like revenge for Serafal since Serafal could only see her little sister being eaten by him and unable to do anything. If everything went well, he might be able to sleep with Serafal too. Nevertheless, he understood the importance of power. So what if he was coming from Phenex House? So what if he was the son of Lord Phenex? So what if he was known as the genius or prodigy? So what if he was known as the Blue Phoenix? In the end, he knew that facing a really powerful being, his only destination be destroyed, and his existence would vanish from this world. As long as he had power, then he could live freely without worrying about anything. That's right. And I will help you with that. But you won't force me again, right? I won't. Think of this as my reward for your first wedding. From now on, there won't be a punishment for you, but at the same time, you should treasure the chances that are given to you since there are many who wish to be in your position now. Riser took a deep breath and knew that the system was correct. While the system was weird, it couldn't be denied that it made him stronger. He knew that the status of devils was determined by their power and demonic power. With the system, he didn't need to worry about all of that as long as he finished the quest given. Naturally, the system wouldn't give him in vain and asked him to do something for him. It was like how the character in the RPG game did a quest to get their reward. That's fair. High risk, high return. Everything is an equal exchange. In other words, there was no need to be grateful toward the system and treat it like a bitch since he was also being worked like a horse. System. However, it was good to know that there wouldn't be any punishments even if he didn't do the quest, yet he knew that the quest was a good thing and he would become stronger by it, even if what he needed to do might cause him to have a lot of trouble. So you really won't force me, right? It was still hard to believe in the integrity of the system. I won't. This is a promise between the two of us. I won't force you, but at the same time, you should be prepared since the world isn't so kind. I understand. Those words were enough for him. Even if the system degenerated and forced him to do something inexplicable in the beginning, it didn't change the fact he became strong because of the system. If the system wasn't there, then he might have been defeated by Issei in the beginning and humiliated when his fiancée was stolen. However, it was all different now. Riser didn't need to worry about all of that. Yet, he could think about that matter later since his wedding was about to start. Chapter 33, My Wedding. In the luxurious hall with beautiful decorations, everyone sat in their place. All of them were staring at the figure of the man who stood in front of everyone as he was looking in the direction of the door entrance. Yet, whenever someone saw this man, they couldn't help but sigh since his change was too big. Riser was quite famous in the raiding game, especially when he had achieved many victories. He might have had 2 defeats, but all of them were done deliberately because his opponents were the allies of the Phenex House. In other words, he gave them a chance. Still, Riser didn't care about them and waited for his wife to be. Though at the same time, he felt like he was married in the church, which made him feel strange. After all, he was a devil, so why was his marriage not much different from human culture? Or was it because a devil was born due to Christianity, so the culture of the devil was affected by this religion? Nevertheless, when he waited for Sona, he noticed several familiar figures sitting among the guests. The one that attracted his attention the most was, without a doubt, Surzek, Lord Gremory, and Rias Gremory since their crimson-colored hair was something that was impossible to ignore. His glance might be discreet, but it was noticed, especially by Rias and Grafia, who was a woman. Unlike a male, a female was sensitive toward a gaze, so they noticed him. Rias showed a gentle smile as if what had happened previously was just a dream. Meanwhile, Grafia politely gave a gentle nod. Yet, Riser ignored the two of them and waited for Sona. Rias only smiled and didn't care about his attitude since she definitely wouldn't give up. However, Grafia sighed since she knew that she had made a bad impression on Riser. During his previous engagement, Surzek told him that she was the one who let Issei enter, caused a mess, and tarnished his pride as a high-class pure-blood devil. If he could forgive her so simply, then he was simply a good guy. Yet, Grafia also knew Riser didn't have a choice but to forgive her, her husband, and her family, since they were the family of Surzek Lucifer, the strongest devil in the underworld. Even if her husband was selfish and often caused trouble, no one would fight him directly, yet inwardly, Grafia thought that she might need to apologize to Riser since, with the combination of Riser and Sona, the house of Citri and Phenex would be together. In other words, the might of two families would increase even more, especially in politics. While Riser might not trouble Surzek, he might trouble her son, and as Surzek's wife, Grafia knew it was her duty to clean up her husband's mess. Riser didn't know what Grafia was thinking, or rather, while it might appear he didn't feel good about Grafia because of Surzek, who put the blame for letting Issei enter the engagement to her. He didn't want Surzek to see that he put much attention to his family. Due to that divorce, it was impossible for their family to appear as warm and good as before. While they might not have said anything in public and kept each other's faces, since his family was the sole producer of the Phenex tears, who knew what was hidden inside, right? Riser believed in evilness, and as long as it was related to love, wealth, and revenge, one would dare to do anything. In the worst case, in the future, he might see his family made into cattle to produce the Phenex tears. Such a thought made him shudder. That bastard's smiling all the time. Let's see how you can keep smiling when I eat your wife. Riser had never looked at Surzek, but he could tell from the system notice Surzek was staring at him. Yet how could Surzek not be? After he divorced Rias, he quickly married Sona. It was already a miracle Surzek could keep his calm, but as a Mal Lucifer, if Surzek couldn't do so, then it would be impossible for him to be the leader of the Mal faction, right? Fortunately, the system had promised not to force him to do something weird during his wedding, so he could sigh in relief and just enjoy his wedding. Nevertheless, during this wedding, many also felt sad, especially his peerage members, who could only sit among the guests as they watched him stand in front, waiting for his bride. Unlike when he was with Rias, he had changed, and their feelings toward him also became even deeper, especially when he had conquered their hearts and bodies. So, while they knew their status made it impossible for him to marry them, they still couldn't erase the longing feelings inside their hearts. Similarly, Ravel, his little sister, was also in the same situation. She didn't know why, but she felt like her heart was being peeled cruelly with a sharp knife when she saw the wedding of her older brother. She didn't feel this with her first and second older brothers, but this feeling was so intense when she saw Riser. Oni-sama. Ravel held back her tears and tried not to cry. Yet, even if Ravel tried not to cry, someone had already cried and caused a lot of noise at this wedding. Yua. Sona-chan. So Sona is going to get married. Owani-chan is so sad. Serafal cried loudly, unable to hold her emotions. If her mother wasn't by her side, then her cry would be even louder. However, no one said anything to Serafal since everyone had gotten used to her antics. Still, while many were sad, many were also happy, especially Sona's peerage members. With their master's marriage, it was impossible for them to be absent. They all looked at Riser with curious expressions since they didn't know him well and heard he was Rias's former fiancé. Nevertheless, among them, one was sobbing. Jin-chan, don't cry. You will interrupt the marriage. Yes. Jinshiro Saji's fate was so cruel. However, Riser ignored them since all of his attention was on the single young woman who entered the marriage hall. Everyone fell into silence as they turned their heads. Sona Citri was there. Riser fell in silence and wondered whether the word wife made Sona appear more attractive in his eyes, or was it due to the white gown on her body. However, there was no doubt, in his eyes, Sona was the most beautiful woman in this place. Sona, who was accompanied by her father, also looked at him, who was waiting for her. She blushed and was shy, but at the same time, she anticipated their future. Father. Still, Sona was surprised when she saw his father cry. I am sorry. I thought that I would never see my grandchild in life. Sona, come on. Your husband is waiting for you. Lord Citri was happy with his youngest daughter's wedding. Yes. The two walked toward Riser under the gaze of everyone. All of them had a smile on their faces since no matter whose factions they were, this marriage was politically correct and should be an example for all the young generations. Yet, for Riser, he didn't care about all of those, and his eyes were only on Sona. It wasn't until Sona and her father came so close that he regained consciousness. Take care of her. I will, father. Riser nodded solemnly. Lord Citri nodded, satisfied, then left Sona in his care from now on. Why do you keep looking at me? Sona asked shyly. It's your fault for being too beautiful. Sona giggled and hugged his arm intimately. As the two stood among all the present, they talked quietly, waiting and listening to the priest-like figure who led the ceremony. Once again, he was speechless, but once again, maybe due to the devil being born from Christianity, that most of the culture of the devil was affected by this religion, including this priest-like figure. Then, it was time for them to say their vows. I, Riser Phenex, take you, Sona Citri, to be my wife. I promise to be true to you in good times and in bad, in sickness and in health. I will love you and honor you all the days of my life. Riser would be lying if he said he wasn't nervous, since he had just wed someone that he only knew for a while, but he had determined to take her as his wife, so he said that vow firmly. Sona's eyes were wet, but even so, she also didn't hesitate, since she knew she had fallen for him. I, Sona Citri, take you, Riser Phenex, to be my husband. I promise to be true to you in good times and in bad, in sickness and in health. I will love you and honor you all the days of my life. The two finished their vows and then faced each other before they kissed to symbolize love and commitment to their marriage. When Riser and Sona kissed, all of them stood up and clapped their hands loudly, feeling happy and moved about their wedding. Nevertheless, not all of them were happy, but there was nothing they could do except stare at the two figures in the distance with tears running down their cheeks. Chapter 34. My wedding is so difficult. With the wedding over, Riser decided to show Sona the might of the Phoenix on their first night. Unfortunately, such an act was impossible, since they needed to attend the reception to meet all the guests that came to their wedding. While Riser wanted to try Sona on her wedding dress, he knew that all the guests that came to their wedding were important people. All of those people that came to this wedding were someone that could determine the lives of all the devils in the underworld. Whether it was money, politics, or military might, all of the people present were the leaders. So it was impossible for him to unleash his desire and become a beast. Whether it was Citri, the Phoenix family, or the combination of the two, was still impossible to ignore the influence of all the people present, so Riser knew that he needed to be an adult and endured all of this for a while. Facing all the guests, Riser talked eloquently, since he had done his homework. Before the wedding, he got all the information about the guests that would come, so he knew who they were and what he shouldn't talk with them about. So whether they came from the Mao faction or the Great King faction, they felt comfortable with him. Nevertheless, due to his marriage with Sona, he should be part of the Mao faction. Well, it should be said that his family should be part of the Mao faction, to begin with, since he was about to be wed to Rias before. However, he agreed with this, since the Mao faction was led by Surzek. Even though this guy was a bitch, there was no doubt that Surzek was the strongest, and he was kind, or ideal? Either way, Surzek was a supporter of the protagonist in the original story, so there was no doubt his faction would win. However, let's forget all the complicated matters now. Whether it was the Great King faction or Mao faction, he didn't care. What he wanted to do was to finish this reception as soon as possible. No one was going to stop him from pushing down Sona in her wedding dress. Like a precise machine, Riser calmly faced all the guests like a responsible adult. No one could find fault with him, but Sona was in a daze, since it was her first time seeing this side of his. Naturally, she loved it, since she could see how dependable he was. Yet, this was probably something natural, since their meeting was relatively short. They decided to marry each other quickly before they knew each other completely. However, Sona didn't regret this choice, since this was something that she had decided. He was the one that she had chosen, but she couldn't help but feel slightly jealous, especially toward his peerage members, or even Rias. Unlike her, they knew him better. Even if he was different from the past, she also wanted to know his past, including his bad past, since he had become her husband now. Due to this, she became greedy and wanted to know everything. Her violet-colored eyes stared deeply into his profile, wanting him to be only for hers. If only she knew what this guy was thinking under this responsible mask. Shudder. Riser felt his neck cold for some reason, but he ignored it and hoped to finish this reception as soon as possible. Sona, congratulations. Seekchan. Don't call me Seekchan. This time, Riser stopped his mask for a millisecond and looked at this beauty. Similar to his wife, this beauty also wore glasses, yet unlike his wife, her body was good. She had long pale greenish blonde hair and long slit pink eyes. Then, he looked at his wife. Don't worry, as a man, he loved the small one too. Still, I didn't expect you would be the first one to have a marriage among us. Sikvaria Agars peeked at Riser curiously, yet how could she not be curious? She knew Riser's identity was Rias's former fiancé. Moreover, the meeting between Sona and Riser was relatively short, yet they decided to marry so quickly. Frankly, Sikveria wondered whether there was a secret romance between them when Riser was still engaged to Rias. No one can guess what will happen in life after all. Sona smiled. Unlike me, in the future, you might not be able to marry someone. Sikveria. Sona, this is? Riser smartly interrupted since he was afraid that they might have a fight. This is my childhood friend, Sikveria Agars. My name is Riser Phenex. Thank you for being my wife's friend, Agars-san. You can call me Sikveria. You are the husband of my friend, after all. Sikveria stared at Riser, then glanced at Rias, who was still sitting on her seat, before she looked at Sona and asked, So, is it okay with you two? Well, it should be, all right? Sona couldn't say her relationship with Rias was all right, especially when Rias had mocked her and her husband. Moreover, she could see the way Rias came to her wedding was like a provocation, especially when Rias tried to challenge the status as the most beautiful in this place. Fortunately, Sona felt her appearance was better, especially in this wedding gown. Well, I hope that our friendship won't be over because of this. Sikveria looked at Riser unintentionally. Riser. He isn't at fault. I am the one who chooses him. He is my husband whether now or in the future. Is that so? Sikveria was surprised by Sona's bold announcement, but as her best friend, she could only wish for her happiness and hope that the relationship between Sona and Rias wouldn't be ruined due to this marriage. So, should she talk to Rias? Well, it seemed quite troublesome. So, that's Sikveria. Riser nodded inwardly before meeting Iriuka Glagiolabalas, who was previously listed by the system, and he had to say this girl was cute. Iriuka was Ravel's childhood friend, and she was rather petite like his little sister, but unlike his little sister, who grew up well on her chest, Iriuka's growth was rather poor. However, Riser was sure that there were many who loved the type of beauty like Iriuka. What about Latia Astaroth? While he didn't meet Latia Astaroth, he met Ajuka Beelzebub, Lord Astaroth, and Diodora Astaroth. The three of them naturally came as guests, and there was no way for them to be absent since the Phenex House and the Citri House were famous and strong families in the underworld. Once again, the combination of the wealthiest family and the family of one of the Maos had become a force that was impossible to ignore. Everyone wanted to have a good relationship with them, so they came. Nevertheless, Sona-chan. Serafal cried with snot as she hugged him and Sona. Wani-chan. Usually, Sona would push Serafal away shyly and helplessly since Serafal often did shameful things, but this time, she didn't do that and also sobbed silently. Riser didn't say anything, and even though he talked, he was afraid that nothing good would come out of his mouth. After all, the things that usually came out of his mouth were either bubs, legs, or thighs. Fortunately, even if Serafal was a magical girl fanatic, she wasn't crazy enough to wear a Mahou Shoujo costume at their wedding. Riser-chan, protect Sona-chan. Okay, I will protect her. Serafal smiled and hugged him tightly. While Sona was moved by their intimate action, Riser was quite awkward since Seafall was relatively short and her bubs were huge, so her bubs touched something they shouldn't. I am a married man. I am a married man. His face was as calm as the surface of the lake as he had achieved enlightenment. Then, in the end, Sona separated them since Serafal hugged him too long. Geez, Sona-chan, don't be jealous, okay? I am not, but he is my husband. Wani-chan is so sad. Sona-chan loves her husband more than her Wani-chan. Serafal seemed to receive great emotional damage as she cried before she was pulled away by her parents so as not to cause any more mess. Still, without a doubt, the wedding was in a festive mood, and everyone was happy with the two high-class pure-blood devils who had decided to become one. Did you enjoy it? Sona asked. Do I look like someone who enjoys it? Riser's expression was blank. Sona stared at Riser for a moment before she nodded. What did she mean by that nod? It didn't matter since he wished for this reception to be over already since he wanted to take Sona's virginity. Yet, such a wish seemed luxurious, especially. Congratulations, Riser-kun, Sona-chan. Still, with the same hypocritical smile on his face, Surzek came and congratulated him. Riser. Why was his wedding so hard? Chapter 35. Wedding War. Riser felt all the happiness in his heart disappear and quickly turn into a calmness, analyzing his situation. While Surzek appeared friendly, it was impossible for him to be deceived. It was impossible for Surzek not to hold a grudge. Frankly, if possible, he wanted to become as strong as possible, so there was no need to worry about this double-standard bastard. While he felt a bit annoyed by his weakness, he knew that it was only time for him to become stronger, especially when he had a system. Surzek might be able to smile like nothing now, but inwardly? Still, if possible, Riser hoped that a disaster-like creature would appear in this world. Then Surzek was forced to fight it, then passed away. By then, he could control the underworld with politics, money, and military might. Or he hoped to get a mind-reading ability, so he wouldn't be troubled by this confrontation. Suddenly, he wondered what would happen if the system gave options. Would he receive the mind-reading ability reward that he currently needs the most? Or would he be asked to do a crazy thing, such as taking down Surzek's mother and wife? When such a possibility existed, he was glad that the system decided to give him a break. Thank you, Surzek-sama. Unlike Riser, who was thinking many things and had an emotional burden, Sona didn't think too much and happily accepted Surzek's congratulations. Thank you for coming, Surzek-sama. However, Riser couldn't do that. If he thanked Surzek like that, what would it mean? It meant that he acknowledged Surzek's mistake and made it as if he was proud of his actions, even though this action had caused great trouble to Surzek and the Gremory family. Frankly, Riser wanted to say that everything was their fault, but he knew that he needed to give them a face since he didn't have enough power to ignore them. Nevertheless, if Riser could handle this situation with his hypocritical mask and lie, then it was all good since the act and words were cheap. If Surzek and the Gremory family could be deceived by his words and acts, then everything was worth it. So at this moment, he worked hard. Still, the meaning of his words, even though it was a simple greeting, also told Surzek and his family that he was glad that they didn't hold a grudge against him and thanked them for their magnanimity for coming to his wedding. However, Riser knew that it was impossible for them not to say anything about his wedding, especially when his wedding happened so fast. It had just been a while since he divorced Rias, then he suddenly married Sona. Even though this marriage was good for the future of Devils, it was impossible for them not to show their dissatisfaction, especially when he was just a younger generation. Moreover, wasn't it the right of the older generation to bully the younger generation? However, Riser still had his trump card. Still, hearing Riser's greetings, Surzek, Lord Gremory, Lady Gremory, and Grafia nodded. But then, Surzek-chan, Uncle Gremory. Then Alana Wunchin, Grafia-chan. Serafal came like a hero who came when one needed to the most. No, she should be a magical girl who saved a victim that was caught by a disgusting tentacle monster. Riser wanted to raise his thumb when Serafal and even almost cried. Serafal, it's been a while. Ziaticus Gremory greeted Serafal with a smile. It's been a while since we met Serafal. Then Alana Gremory also showed a gentle smile at Serafal's entrance. Grafia also nodded at Serafal's greeting. He, I miss you too. Serafal acted childishly like a child, but without a doubt, her appearance eased the tension in this place. Come on, Surzek-chan. Uncle Gremory. Then Alana Wunchin. Grafia-chan. Let me show you the best cuisine of the Citri house. It was hard to refuse Serafal's invitation, so after they congratulated Riser and Sona, they went along with Serafal. However, I hope you have a happy marriage, Riser-kun. Surzek said those words with a gentle smile. Thank you, Surzek-sama. Riser also answered with a gentle smile. As for what the two were genuinely thinking, who knows? Yet, this wasn't the end since it was Rias's turn to cause trouble. Meanwhile, Aquino, who was Rias's queen, also submissively followed behind Rias. Congratulations on your wedding, Sona, Riser. Even though Rias said so, she had been looking at Riser instead of Sona as if she had been ignoring Sona. Sona only raised her brows and didn't say anything. Like Rias, who was the lady of the Gremory, Sona also had her pride. If Rias wanted to continue to have a Cold War, then she didn't mind. Moreover, Rias hadn't apologized for her previous provocation, yet she tried to provoke her again, especially like how Rias dressed today. Rias's dress was so beautiful, and she was like a proud peacock who announced to everyone that she was the most beautiful in this place. If this was another event, then it might be okay, but this was a wedding. As it was a wedding, it was natural for the bride to be the one with the most beautiful appearance. It was the silent etiquette shared by everyone, yet Rias tried to challenge Sona. Even though this battle was quiet and subtle, the scent of gunpowder spread in every direction. With one wrong move, one would die in an explosion. Thank you for coming, Gremory-san. Riser's acting was good, and he didn't seem like Rias's former fiancé, only an acquaintance. I hope that you have a happy marriage, okay? What do you mean by that, Rias? Sona raised her brows. I mean nothing. Rias showed a meaningful smile and then smiled at Sona. I am happy for you too. Leaving those words, she left. Aquino also left after she bowed her head, telling them that she also congratulated them, but her eyes inadvertently glanced in Riser's direction. Riser tried his best to ignore it since his wife had been staring at him like an eagle hunting her prey. He then sighed and said, Your husband is too popular. Sona, you don't feel anything at your former fiancé? Why do I? Riser looked at Sona and asked, Do you know what I am thinking? What? I want this reception to be over as soon as possible, so I can bring you to our room now. Sona was speechless before blushing and shyly saying, Be patient, okay? Riser nodded like a good student. Fortunately, after Surzek, the Gremory, and Rias, the rest were quite decent guests, especially this person. Sona, congratulations on your wedding. Riser looked at the young man in front of him. This young man had short black hair and a rather muscular frame. Still, the weirdest thing was that this young man seemed more interested in him than Sona. Thank you, Sarork. Sona nodded, then looked at her husband. Husband, this is Sarork. He is in the same school as me, along with Rias and Sikveria, when I am in the underworld. Nice to meet you, Sarork. My name is... I know you. You are Riser Phenex, right? The Blue Phoenix. You can call me Riser. I will get embarrassed if you call me the Blue Phoenix. Haha. Sarorg laughed. They talked for a while before Sarorg excused himself. Riser, if possible, let's meet again in the future. Yes. I hope so. Riser nodded as he watched Sarorg leave. You seem to have an interest in him. Sona looked at her husband curiously. He is the heir of the Great King. It's good to know him. Well, that's true. Even if the Mao faction seemed to be at an advantage, the Great King faction couldn't be defeated so easily. The two factions were in equilibrium positions as they pushed each other, trying to take advantage of each other. Nevertheless, knowing Sarog wasn't a bad thing since he seemed to be quite a decent guy. It's almost over. Sona lowered her head shyly since she knew she was about to be eaten. Around the corner, Surzek and Serafal stood next to each other as they ate pasta. Serafal, don't you think it is weird of him to ask your little sister for marriage during this time? Surzek questioned his doubts. Yes, it's weird. Serafal nodded in a bubbly way. Then, but Sona has chosen him. She has chosen him as her husband, so it doesn't matter, right? Even Serafal knew that the timing for Riser to choose this marriage was quite weird, especially after he had just divorced Rias. However, she knew that his intention wasn't bad, and he probably just wanted to have her backing. It was kind of cute, though. Still, like Surzek, Serafal was a Siscon, so as long as it made her little sister happy, she would do anything. Riser could make Sona happy, so Serafal was going to support him. Similarly, Surzek was the same, so as long as someone caused trouble to his little sister, he would take care of them. So, don't bully him, okay, Surzek-chan? He is my little brother-in-law, after all. Serafal smiled innocently at Surzek. The two stared at each other for a moment before Surzek sighed. I know. Surzek knew and gave up since he didn't want to ruin his relationship with Serafal, thinking that it might be a lesson for Rias. You are a good boy, Surzek-chan. Serafal smiled kindly as he patted Surzek's head. As the two made peace, this matter was over. Yet, was it really over? Surzek might not know. Someone else was holding a grudge against him. After all, as a certain Chinese protagonist's novel says, 30 years east, 30 years west, don't you dare bully me because I'm poor now. When Riser was strong and rich, he was going to bully Surzek back. However, Riser was going to let go of Surzek now since his first night was more important. Chapter 36. My First Night. Riser locked the door, making sure that no one could enter or interrupt him before he looked at the young woman in the beautiful wedding gown. He was almost drooling, watching her beauty, holding back like a beast under the cage, yet now, the cage was opened, and there was no need for him to be tortured anymore. You can't run away now, Sona Citri. Why do you sound like a villain in the magical girl anime? Sona was shy, but at the same time, she was also speechless by her husband's antics. Even if you scream, no one is going to help you. I am going to make you my woman tonight. Riser jumped into Sona. Wait. Even though Sona seemed reluctant, she didn't move away from his hold and even tightly latched into his body, waiting to be eaten by him. Even before they officially had their wedding, they often sneakily did something that they shouldn't do. Well, even if it was something they shouldn't do, he only limited it to kissing and touching as he helped Sona to grow her B-cup of breasts. Frankly, Sona wasn't as flat as she seemed to be. It was just that the people around her were just abnormal since each of them had an impossible growth. Because of this, Sona also lacked confidence in her size, so as her husband, it was his duty to raise her confidence. Even if they were small, it didn't matter. After all, they were cute and sensitive. Still, by now, with their status as husband and wife, there was no need for him to hold back anymore. However, Sona was also ready to become a woman, but after she waited for a while, he didn't move and stopped. She became confused and looked up. What's wrong? Wait a moment. Riser let go of Sona and then walked into the corner where the wardrobe was located. He opened the wardrobe directly. Then, a figure dropped to the ground. Ouch. It hurts. One-chan. However, Sona was so shocked when she saw Serafal come out from that place. Teiki. Seraph laughed as she lightly hit the side of her head, trying to act cute, and did nothing big while trying to hide something. 2x. Riser and Sona stood side by side and stared at Serafal silently. Under the stare of the two, Serafal stuck out her tongue cutely. Teiki. 2x. Can I throw her out the window? That's a good idea. Riser-chan and Sona-chan are so cruel. Demon. Killer. You two don't love your One-chan anymore. One-chan is so sad. Sona pinched the bridge of her nose, trying to ease her headache. Frankly, she also had a headache since she felt embarrassed when she thought Serafal watched what she did with Riser. Still, Riser sucked a deep breath, wondering whether Siscon was a kind of disease in the underworld. Fortunately, Sona had an older sister instead of an older brother. Suddenly, he wondered if he married Rias, then would Surzek do something similar to what Serafal did? Shudder. While he felt a little uncomfortable, he suddenly noticed something. Hey, what is that? No nothing. However, Serafal's resistance was meaningless. Riser frowned, then took out the video camera hidden by Serafal. One-chan. Sona's voice was low and gloomy. Video camera? Was there even a need to question what Serafal planned to do with this item? I won't get angry, so tell me, what are you planning to do? Are you really not going to get angry, Sona-chan? Serafal looked at Sona timidly yet also felt hopeful. What do you think? Sona asked with a smile. You are extremely angry. Of course. Who won't get angry when you find out your sister is hiding inside the room like this? It was fortunate that Riser found Serafal. What if he didn't? But. Sona-chan is about to lose her first time. You will become a woman. So, it's normal for me to want to capture it on the video, right? Serafal showed an innocent smile. Oni-chan. Sona couldn't control it anymore and fought Serafal. As the two fought each other, Riser felt speechless, but at the same time, he also felt dreaded. This feeling. Riser quickly looked around and found the clock before his heart stopped. You are about to have your first night after a long wedding. Option 1. Focus on Sona and take her virginity. You will receive a beverage-making mastery. Option 2. Take Sona and Serafal and have 2 sisters for the first time. You will receive an enhanced stamina. Option 3. Take Sona, Serafal, and Ravel and have a foursome. You will receive a Mara no Mi complete version. Riser turned his head in surprise and looked at the door of his room before he looked at his options again. He let out a helpless sigh and thought that the system was as abominable as ever. After all, the day had just passed. Couldn't it give him a break and wait until he took Sona's virginity first? Nevertheless, he felt relief since there was no punishment, and he also felt surprised since he could take all 3 options at the same time. If that was the case, then shouldn't those options in the past could also be completed at the same time? However, 2 of the 3 options that he received in the past were definitely impossible to do, so he could only do one option even if the rewards from the system were amazing. Still, he didn't need to think about those matters now since he needed to choose his options soon. Among those 3 options, he could do the 3 of them at the same time and get those 3 rewards. But in reality, was it really possible? He didn't need to think and made up his mind. Serafal and Sona continued to argue with each other, but suddenly a figure appeared between them and forced them to stop their fights. Riser-chan. Husband. Serafal was suddenly picked up by Riser before she was thrown outside the room. Thank you. Serafal was dumbfounded by his sudden actions and also his thank you, but she was even more dumbfounded when she suddenly saw Ravel, who seemed to eavesdrop. Ravel panicked when she saw her older brother, but Riser didn't seem to care and just closed the door and locked it again. 2x. Ravel and Serafal stared at each other for a moment. Are you going to peek at them, Ravel-chan? Serafal broke the silence as she asked this question curiously, causing Ravel to run away in embarrassment. New. Serafal shook her head and thought that Ravel was too young. She felt that there was nothing wrong with siblings loving each other. If she was in Ravel's place, she might do incest, but then she suddenly realized something. Serafal turned and tried to enter the room, but she couldn't. Riser-chan. Sona-chan. Let me enter. I want to watch you too. However, neither Riser nor Sona ever answered her plea. Still, Sona, who was inside, didn't have time to answer Serafal's shout since she saw her husband suddenly remove his shirt and throw it away. Us husband. Sona's voice was trembling and she was nervous, but Riser was already impatient. While Sona was in her white gown, he took her lips. Yet, unlike their chaste kiss previously, this time, it was a lewd kiss that made her mind melt and unable to think straight. Her body was lifted before she was dropped on the bed by her husband, and she fell into a daze after that kiss. Sona felt like her body was hot, like burnt by a fire, and her eyes were unable to look away from him. Riser held her chin as he looked into her moist eyes. For now, just be obedient and listen to me, okay? Sona was obedient. Serafal, who tried to enter the room by crying, suddenly stopped when she heard a strange noise. As a malclass of devil, her senses were enhanced, including her hearing. Moreover, the room didn't have perfect soundproofing, so even if it was faint, she could hear the voices from inside. Yet, hearing this voice, Serafal felt like she was struck by a bolt of lightning, and her heart was beating so fast. She shut her mouth tight and focused everything on her sense of hearing, trying to clearly hear the strange noise from inside. No. It's too much. Oh. Husband. Sona's lewd, hoarse cry could be heard. Serafal wasn't sure how to describe her feelings. She was sad and in tears since her precious little sister was brutally eaten by Riser, yet at the same time. Her fingers reached the deepest part of her skirt as she listened to the voice of her exchange between her little sister and Riser with a flushed yet excited face. Chapter 37. The Impossible Becomes Possible. Riser lit up the cigar in his hand before he started to smoke relaxedly. He wasn't sure how long that it had been, especially when the underworld was quite different from the earth. While the concept of morning and night existed, it was hard to tell since the sky of the underworld had a purple color. Sona is still sleeping, and she won't wake up any time. In this moment of chance, you can bring Serafal inside and have Shimai dawn. Riser fell in silence and glanced at the entrance of the room, wondering whether Serafal had been staying in that place. Still, fortunately, Ravel wasn't there anymore. While Riser knew that he was lying to himself, he hoped that Ravel happened to be in front of his room because she had gotten lost. Yet, he knew that that wasn't the case, but he didn't want to think about that possibility. Frankly, instead of Ravel, it might be better to do it with Serafal or Lady Citri since it was healthier. Lady Citri. Unlike Serafal, Lady Citri was like Sona but with long hair. If they stood next to each other, one might mistake them as a sister. Riser looked at his little Riser and let out a helpless sigh. What a pervert. Nevertheless, everything was smooth. With his marriage to Sona, he no longer needed to be worried about Surzek, especially during his wedding reception. He saw Serafal and Surzek talking secretly in the corner. While he wasn't sure of the content, he knew she was trying to smooth out his relationship with Surzek. Arigato, Serafal Wunchin. Still, everything was good now, and there was no need to worry about anything except for the system that inexplicably gave him a strange option. Yet, he probably didn't need to worry about the system either since it wouldn't force him anymore. He could lay lazily and enjoy life. Was it wrong? No, right? After all, 7 sins were born from the devils. Being a sloth meant that he had become a good devil. As for the problem in the underworld, the problem between the Mao faction and Great King faction, the peace of the 3 factions, and others, he could leave all of them to the protagonist. As for what he was planning to do, he would focus on his hot spring resort and spend his time with his harem. There was no need for him to be troubled by anything and just enjoy his life as Riser Phenex. Nevertheless, since it was a rare quiet time, he quickly put his attention to the rewards he gained from marrying Sona. As expected, he got 3 random rewards, like how he got rewards from sleeping with most of his peerage members. He might not have planned to do anything dangerous and continued his debauchery life without worry with Serafal's backing, but that didn't mean he didn't want to become stronger. If he could become stronger, then why not, right? Frankly, he felt weird about his previous reward. Beverage-making mastery? Did the system want him to make alcohol so he could get a woman drunk and then sleep with that woman? He felt that this reward was meaningless, but it was pretty good for a business since it could help him to have more money since he could make any delicious beverages from coffee, soda, milk, tea, and others. It was a perfect combination when he was about to start a hot spring resort. Though, it was useless to add his power. Well, enough about this since he wanted to open his rewards soon. Like a slot machine, an almost infinite number of lists of various things kept turning until it stopped showing the 3 rewards he received. Congratulations, you have received Healthy Body, Architecture Mastery, and Command T. It's interesting. He blew up a smoke as he checked his rewards. The first reward was a Healthy Body. There was no doubt it was a good ability since it would make his body healthy forever. He might have been immortal due to him being born from the Phenex house, but it didn't mean he was immune to disease. Well, whether it was a virus or bacteria or anything else that might have burnt off his ability to fire, there were other diseases that might have happened to his body, such as weakening organs due to overindulgence or bad lungs due to his smoking habit. Frankly, he knew that he should stop smoking, but sometimes he couldn't help it since he would be lying if he didn't have stress about living as a Riser Phenex, being hated by Surzek, being troubled by the system, and many other things. However, there was no need to worry about those matters anymore. Even if he was stressed or indulged in S*X, his body would be in the perfect health state all the time. Still, next time, if he got an all-purpose farming tool and 150 harems, then it would be perfect. After Healthy Body, his next reward was Architecture Mastery. Undoubtedly, it was a perfect reward for him, who was about to build a hot spring reward. Arigato, System-san. As he closed his eyes, he could already imagine the construction of the hot spring resort in a detailed manner, including the surroundings. Moreover, he also tried to be bold, wondering whether he could combine architecture with magic. As an old family, the Phenex family had a lot of magic books and other knowledge. So if he combined it with his architecture to create a giant magic circle formula, what would happen? Suddenly, everything became exciting, and he couldn't wait to make everything on his mind become reality. Nevertheless, his last reward was even more amazing. Command T. It is magic that allows the user to alter mass and proportions. In other words, he could manipulate the size of anything and everything, from tiny to absolutely gigantic, while retaining their physical proportions. Naturally, this magic wasn't perfect since he had just gotten the basics, but he knew that he could master it sooner or later with his high intelligence. If there was a limitation to this magic, it was his limited demonic power. His demonic power might have increased, but it didn't mean he had an unlimited amount of demonic power. Frankly, the use of this magic was good since he could make more money by increasing the size and mass of the material, such as precious metals and ore. If he gave an example, he had 1 gram of gold. Then, using this magic, he made it into 1 ton of gold. It was simply money-making magic, right? As for the use in the battle, he was still with his wife. How could he dare try to do something so dangerous? Nevertheless, it didn't stop him from trying his new magic. He looked at his cigar, then suddenly it became bigger, then smaller before it returned to its original size. Suddenly, he sighed in relief when he thought that he had mathematic mastery, so everything was easier. Nevertheless, Riser looked at his little riser before his eyes widened, and he sucked a deep breath due to amazement. Amazing. What's amazing? He was startled and quickly returned the little riser to its original size. His original size wasn't bad, and it was already the size that everyone could only envy, yet sometimes, being able to control the size, depending on the situation, was better, right? Or rather, wasn't this ability complemented his S*X mastery so much? Still, he needed to handle his wife first. Nothing. Riser then noticed her frown. Sorry, did you not like the smoke? He was about to stop smoking, but Sona hugged him tightly. I don't really like the scent of smoke, but if it's you, I don't mind. Sona didn't like the smell of the smoke from the cigar, but she bore it for him since she didn't want to part away from him. Though it was a bit embarrassing to say all of that, her cheeks blushed cutely. Riser looked at Sona for a moment, then turned off the fire on the cigar, then put it on the ashtray before he returned to the bed, hugging his wife. Still, he couldn't help but ask, Are you still tired? What do you think? Sona stared at Riser blankly. Riser only laughed awkwardly since he became a beast last night. Even though he knew that it was Sona's first time, he was too excited. Well, let's take it easy today. Sona nodded, closed her eyes, and continued to sleep since it seemed she was still exhausted, but she didn't let go of her husband. Sona loved her husband so much. Yet, Riser fell in silence as his focus happened to be on two small mounds on her chest. As expected, due to her size, she was extremely sensitive. Moreover, her two pink nipples were so cute that he wanted to suck them forever. Yet, due to his newly gained power, he couldn't help but think of a certain possibility. Riser was silent as he stared at his wife's B-cup breasts. It should be possible, right? Now, Sona is no longer a problem, right? Chapter 38, D for the Devil. While Riser wanted to share this newfound knowledge with his wife, he decided to keep this matter a secret first. Instead, as a good husband, he might as well increase the size of his wife's bust slowly by rubbing them, so as not to startle her, since the sudden increase in her bust size might cause many troubles, especially the jealousy of other women. Riser was afraid that his mother-in-law also asked him to increase her bust size. What should he do? Should he become a good son-in-law and help her? Or should he become a gentleman and refuse her? What a difficult choice. Nevertheless, Riser hoped to increase his wife's bust to at least D-cup, as D was for the devil. Jokes aside, he knew his mastery over this ability was still dubious. He needed to master this command T even further, so he could bring more happiness to this marriage. You still haven't had enough? Sona asked speechlessly. It's okay. I am not a beast. Sona looked at the little Riser, who stood straight between her thighs and sighed helplessly since her husband was too lively, right? Somehow, she felt that it wasn't bad for him to have lovers since she realized her body wasn't strong enough to handle him, yet at the same time, she would be lying if it didn't feel good. Nevertheless, after last night's carnage, the two went to take a bath to clean themselves. After all, they weren't shameless enough to go out with the sin of sweat, S*X, and other liquids on their bodies. Fortunately, soon, little Riser was sleeping, giving time to Riser and Sona to relax together in the bathtub inside her room. Frankly, there should be a pool inside her castle, but it would take time to go there, and with her personality, who loved to do anything in an efficient manner, naturally, she had her own bathroom inside her room. By the way, do you want Phenex tears? Isn't it too luxurious to use Phenex tears to ease my soreness? But it doesn't feel good, right? Well, I can make Phenex tears anytime anyway, so you don't need to worry. It was easy to make Phenex tears since he only needed to mix his tears in the water. Then, Viola, the Phenex tears were ready. Riser thought that being part of the Phenex family was so easy to make money. Then, Sona didn't refuse and accepted the Phenex tears from him, drinking it before she felt the soreness on her body disappear. She felt so comfortable now, so she leaned on his chest as she played with his hand. By the way, when are you going back to your school? What's wrong? Riser felt weird when he saw Sona fall in silence. Didn't I tell you that I am going to drop out of school? Huh? Why? He was confused. Sona blinked her eyes in disbelief before she let out a helpless sigh. Did you not remember my promise during our chess match? If you won, I would marry you right away, and I would drop out of my school in the human world. No, why should you stop? You should continue. Riser felt that it would be a little troublesome if his wife stayed with him all the time. Moreover, he felt that it was too wasteful, and wasn't it better for her to have something to do rather than spending her time at home, doing nothing, or following him? By then, Sona wasn't much different from those housewives who spent their time doing nothing. Even worse, her family wasn't poor, so she had a lot of maids that could take care of her house chores. In other words, if she really dropped out of her school in the human world, then she would become a nagging housewife with a slightly overweight body that often appeared in reality. No, no, no. Riser shook his head and thought that it shouldn't be possible, especially when Sona wasn't a lazy type of person, and if she really dropped out, she would either help him with his resort or help her father since she was the heir of the Citri house. Frankly, he didn't want to work. He wanted to become a bum who didn't need to worry about anything, even if he didn't work. Or rather, if he worked, he would lose. In other words, he definitely couldn't let Sona drop out of her school. Sona needed to have a good education so that way, she could support him, who wanted to have a good-for-nothing life. Really? Yes. Riser nodded with a gentle expression. Since you have decided to go to the human world, there must be something that you want to do, right? I might be reluctant to let you go, but I will feel guilty if I become the reason for you to stop your dream. Husband. Sona's eyes were misty, filled with tears, moved by her husband's words. Riser tried to coax Sona, who got emotional as he patted her back, shoulder, and cute butts while thinking that his worthless lazy bum-like life would set up after this. Riser couldn't contain his happiness. When you stay at home all the time, your relationship with your mother-in-law will heat up. Then when no one is at home, you can start to take down your mother-in-law. Riser wondered whether it was easier to take down his mother-in-law instead of his sister-in-law since the system told him to take down his mother-in-law. Either way, it was impossible for him to do so unless they took the initiative. He didn't want to become a sinner and just wanted to enjoy life. Having Sona and his peerage members was enough. However, as he had given her permission, it would be cheap if he didn't ask for something in exchange. Still, can you agree to my request tonight? Sona was speechless, but she nodded shyly. He had given her permission to continue to go to the school in the human world, so granting one of his requests was nothing. Still, there was something that she wanted to ask. But if I am gone, won't you miss me? Riser blinked his eyes before hugging Sona in his arms, and he kissed her hair affectionately. Of course, I miss you, but it isn't like you will be gone forever, right? You can go home during the weekend. Anyway, he had his peerage members when Sona went to the school, so there was no need to worry that no one would take care of his little Riser. Still, Sona wanted him to follow her to the human world, but she hesitated. Husband, how about your hot spring resort? The hot spring is ready. The quality of the water is good. The only thing left is to make the design for the resort. I see. Sona sighed inwardly since she knew that he was busy, and it was impossible for him to go to the human world, at least for now. Still, Riser couldn't bear it when he saw her disappointment. When I finish the design, I will go to the human world. Huh? Really? Sona was excited. Yes. Riser nodded. After all, he would be lying if he wasn't curious about the human world. Unlike the original Riser, he didn't look down on the human world and thought that the underworld was better. Instead, he felt a bit greedy as he wanted to conquer two places. Yet, as a lazy bum, he felt that he would lose if he worked, so once his hot spring resort finished, he would spend his time lazily and live with his dividend money. Though, frankly, with his Command T, there was no need for him to worry about money since he could increase the size of some precious metals and then sell it. Moreover, the change in the size of the object with this magic would be permanent, so there was no need to worry. In other words, with limited capital, he could become the richest. Still, there was something that he wanted to ask. I have never asked you this, but why did you go to the school in the human world? Is there something that you want to do? Compared to the school in the underworld, the school of the human world was obviously worse. Moreover, most of the lessons taught in the human world school would be useless in the underworld, so he wanted to know why his wife, who was obviously smart, went to the human world to have an education. Hearing her husband's question, Sona hesitated before she made up her mind and looked at her husband earnestly. Do you want to listen? Riser was sure he was about to be caught in a troublesome problem. Chapter 39. During this critical moment, you can only become a man. Riser knew that Sona was about to tell him something troublesome, but he knew that he couldn't escape, so he bit the bullet. Yes. Moreover, wasn't it unmanly of him to fear the story of his wife? As for the aftermath matters, he could make a decision after she finished her story. Sona took a deep breath and said, I want to make a school. School? Then, why don't you make one? Even in his domain, there was a school. On the contrary, in every domain in the underworld, there should be at least 1 or 2 schools since the population in those domains needed to have such a facility. Moreover, it could become a business, and the money that came from an education wasn't small. If Sona wanted to make a school, then with her status as the heir of the Citri family, it was as easy as walking into the park. The wealth that was collected by her family from her ancestors' time was impossible to be emptied by just building a single school. Moreover, even if Sona's family wasn't as wealthy as him, her family almost monopolized the healthcare business and had the best hospital in the underworld. If Sona wished to make a school, even without her parents' permission, she could do it anytime. It's not that kind of a normal school. I want to create a school for the rating game. Rating game school? Riser looked at Sona and wondered why everyone loved the rating game so much, but he didn't intend to argue. Then, you can just create it, right? While you haven't had your debut in the rating game, it shouldn't be difficult if you want to make a school for the rating game. With her status as the heir of the Citri clan and the little sister of Serafal, if Sona wanted to make a rating game school, who could stop her? Even if Sona hadn't made her debut in the rating game as an heir of the aristocratic family, she could do many things that many people couldn't do. Sona knew that her husband wasn't wrong. It would have been easy for her to make a school for the rating game if she wished to, but the school that she wanted to make was different, and she knew many people would reject this dream of hers. Sona didn't care about the thoughts of those people since this was her dream, but it was different from Riser's. If Riser suddenly hated her due to this dream of hers. Suddenly, her hands were held gently. Sona, I am your husband. If you can't trust me, then who will you trust? Husband. Riser felt that being a man was difficult, but he knew that the difficulty was just the beginning. After Sona's route was cleared up, he could have a lazy life. Thought before all of that, he needed to know what his wife's dream was. After all, considering her dream, he might need to work, which was something that he didn't want to do. Nevertheless, he knew that he needed to help her, considering his status as her husband, so he hoped that her dream was an easy one. Sona stared at Riser, who was looking at her gently yet firmly as if telling her that she could rely on him. Love, love, love. Sona was glad that Rias made him divorce her and made her propose to her. If not, then she might not be able to marry him. I want to make a raiding game school for the lower-class devil. Riser blinked his eyes, not due to Sona's wish, but due to the system that he knew would cause him trouble. As a villain, you should have your own opinion. Option 1. Throw away your stupid dream. You will receive a Magu Magu no Mi complete version. Option 2. Humph? Lower class of the devil? Why should you help them? You should make them stupid and make them your cattle, so you can squeeze all of their values until they die. You will receive a Hi no Mi complete version. Option 3. Help Sona to build a school and brainwash all the students so they will become loyal to you. You will receive a Tori no Mi model, Phenex complete version. Riser fell in silence when he saw all of those options. He didn't care about the options. Instead, he cared more about the rewards. The rewards he got were all a devil fruit from a familiar work that he had read in his previous life. But unlike the devil fruit, in that work where the user would be weakened due to the water, this devil fruit wouldn't give such a weakness. Moreover, this version allowed him to eat more than one devil fruit. Among those rewards, all of those devil fruits had amazing abilities. Nevertheless, even though he could choose option 1 and option 2, giving him abilities of magma manipulation and ice manipulation at the same time, the possibility of him choosing those options was almost zero. If he really dared to choose option 1 and option 2, he was sure that Seraphal, who was still outside of their room, would freeze him to death. Well, he didn't think that Seraphal would do so since Sona definitely wouldn't allow her older sister to kill him, even if he chose option 1 or option 2. Nevertheless, if he chose those two options at the same time, even if his wife didn't divorce him, a crack would happen. Or Sona would accept his mockery and everything like a wife who got domestic violence. Frankly, he wondered whether being a villain meant becoming a harsh husband who often beat up his wife. Yet, the system's options didn't surprise him, especially since the system often told him to sleep with his little sister, mother-in-law, sister-in-law, or many others. But the option 3. He knew that he could only choose option 3, but it was also because of this he understood why the reward was amazing. Frankly, as part of the aristocratic family, he understood that no matter one beautifies the raiding game, it was only a game for the high-class devil. As for the lower class and middle class, they didn't have a right or even a chance to play in this game. If he had to be honest, even if he knew that someone would fight him hard for it, the raiding game, in his eyes, was nothing but a game for the rich to increase their wealth and political power. Yet, as expected, it is impossible. No. Riser quickly held his wife tight since he couldn't bear her crying face. It's possible. I believe in you. You must be able to realize this dream of yours, but I'm just wondering how I can be part of your dream and help you. That's why I have been thinking deeply. You will help me? Sona was surprised. Listen, Sona. No matter what, even if the world is saying your dream is stupid, I am the only one that won't think so. I will believe that you will be able to realize your dream no matter how long it will be since I will be by your side all the time. Husband. Sona hugged him tightly and didn't let him go, thinking she was so glad to marry him. However, Riser, who had chosen option 3, sighed helplessly since he knew his dream to have a lazy bum life was far away in the distance. Chapter 40, A Human Failure, at a Perfect Devil. So, as you have been studying the human world, have you been thinking of making a raiding game school for the lower-class devil? Yes. If so, then why should she come to the human world? Or rather, if she didn't have such an intention, she might as well stay in the underworld since she could strengthen the tie between the aristocratic family. Sona told him that she had been learning all the education systems in the underworld and the human world, combining the two, creating a more efficient yet warm system, so while the students could work toward their dream, they could also enjoy their youth. As she talked, Riser couldn't help but think that Sona was naively cute. Was the rating game such a beautiful game or a place where one could get the result as long as one was working hard enough? Riser didn't think so, since if that was the case, then why should all the participants be high-class devils? If so, then why should the original Riser let himself be defeated twice in the rating game? In other words, this rating game was nothing but a game among the aristocratic family in the underworld to get more money. After all, not everyone was like his family that could exchange their tears for a tremendous amount of money. Even if one was powerful, their means to get money was limited, especially when most of the money had been divided by the Mal faction and the Great King faction. Yet Riser also wasn't surprised by Sona's naivety. After all, she was young, and she still hadn't started her debut in the rating game. So even if she had some knowledge about it through the data collected and from her family, she didn't know the reality of the game. Frankly, if he had chosen option 1 or option 2 previously, then he might have given her a reality, yet it didn't mean she would stop since her character was rather stubborn. So, in the end, he chose option 3 since he knew that she wouldn't stop chasing after her dream. In that case, he might as well support her since he didn't need to do much. In other words, with a limited amount of work, since most of the work should be taken by Sona, he should be able to get a good reward. Moreover, he should be able to participate in the creation of the education book. Now, why did he mention this matter? His participation in the education book was necessary so that way he could brainwash those children who joined their school. A child is still pure. They don't know anything, and they are still in the process of learning about their surroundings. The best way for them to learn is to learn from their elders and books. So, by using education, he would be able to create a loyal group of devils, and when they graduated, they would enter various important sectors in the underworld or the human world, becoming his part of tentacles to dominate the world. Joke aside, without a doubt, even if it was troublesome to make a school for the lower-class devil in the beginning, the reward was good, especially when the trend of the reincarnated devil couldn't be stopped. The number of reincarnated devils would increase even further, and this trend couldn't be stopped. So, entering the education sector to control all of this new group of devils was a good thing. Riser then looked at his wife and thought that while she was naive, she was sharp and smart. Nevertheless, Riser knew that his wife didn't have a nasty thought like him. Instead, she just wished for an equal chance for all the devils, no matter what their status was. It was a good wish, yet the reality was otherwise. For the rich, or those who came from wealthy families, it was easy since they could use the resources of their families to get stronger. However, those who came from the poor couldn't do that since they didn't have money, nor did their parents have an inheritance or something that they could rely on to become stronger or grow. For those who were poor, they could only rely on mutations or luck, hoping they could gain a hidden power inside their bodies to challenge those who were rich. Having a school meant that he could find those who mutated or talented among the poor, like how he found gold among a group of sands. No matter what era or race, talent was important. Nevertheless, he couldn't help but imagine what would happen if he married Rias instead of Sona. Riser had married Sona, so he knew that even if he was quite lazy, he knew that he needed to participate in her dream, even if he only supported her verbally. Nevertheless, this dream of hers was definitely frowned upon by all the aristocratic family, even if he didn't want to. Fortunately, he wasn't alone in this fight since Serafal would support Sona too. With the support of the two, there was no doubt in the realization that this school wasn't just a pipe dream. Then, what if he married Rias? Riser knew that Rias didn't have many dreams. The only thing that she wanted to do was to become the best. The rest? She only wanted to play a game and spend her time on her otaku hobby without worry since her older brother, sister-in-law, and nephew could handle all of those troublesome matters. Then, did it mean that she was bad? No. Instead, Riser suddenly felt that Rias wasn't bad at all. If he married Rias, then he can spend his time enjoying life without worry, holing up inside the room, either playing games or having S*X since her family was rich and had a lot of influence on the world. Moreover, even if he had kissed Rias, he hadn't rubbed her bubs after all. However, he knew that reality couldn't work that way. Rias didn't have a good impression of him, and if he didn't divorce her at that time, there was no way that she would kiss him like before. Instead, he had to say if he had to add all of those factors, the best wife he could choose was, without a doubt, Sona. Yet, at the same time, he knew that due to her status as the heir and her dream, Sona would be mostly busy, and she might be exhausted, so she might not be able to help him with his needs in that area. However, as he had a harem, this problem wasn't a problem at all. Suddenly, he realized that no one was perfect. Rias might have bubs, but she was troublesome. Sona might not have bubs, but she was simply a perfect wife for a good-for-nothing like him. Lastly, he realized that he was really a failure as a human, but as a devil, it seemed he was perfect. Still, as he had decided to become his husband and also chose option 3, he should also do his best. Wrong. What he needed to do was not to appear lazy and appear like he had done so much to help her, even though he didn't really help much, so she would even fall in love with him even more. Yes, that's what he should do. Sona, do you want to listen to my advice to build this school? Advice. Watching her expression looking at him curiously, Riser thought that being a consultant and helping people by just talking was deceiving them, so they could do their best in his place was the best job for him.